Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 19 of They Call Me Coach. Who knew that we would actually make it to 19 episodes when the lockdown first began? Excuse me. I'm really happy to introduce tonight's guest, former England international, current WBBL player and coach, Rheanne Bailey. Rheanne, good evening and welcome.
Hi, really happy to be here. Yeah, thanks. Really nice intro as well.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. There's a bit more to come. So, at the beginning of every show, firstly, I try and remind everybody that, this isn't a journalistic show. This is essentially a conversation between passionate people who love basketball, who love British basketball, and are real kind of fans of the game. And then, secondly, I always try and provide a bit of context as to how I know my guests. Now, often they're people that I've worked with or coached with, or I've coached or played against, etc. And tonight's no different. Rheanne kind of first became on my radar when she was still playing in Birmingham. Excuse me. So we'd played against Rheanne at under 18 level. Rheanne was always an absolute tour de force whenever she got on the basketball court. And then later on, I met Rheanne at the England under 18, one of the camps, and I was an assistant coach to Michael Ball. I don't know if you remember that experience, Rheanne, but one of the things we as coaches, we would often, we'd coach the camp, or we'd plan the camp, and we'd coach, and we'd go through all the players and where are they from and what clubs are they playing at, and do we know a bit about their temperament. And every time we met, we talked about you being kind of one of those feisty characters. I remember at the time, and forgive me, I'm going to be painfully honest. I remember at the time saying, um, "Love Rheanne Bailey, love what she brings to the team, but she's so tough. Like every time she looks at me, I feel like she's giving me daggers." And I think now that I know you, now that I know you a little bit better, and obviously we haven't seen each other for maybe nearly 20 years, I think. Um, no, it can't be that long. Anyway,
Okay.
it's been some time. It's been some time. One of the things I've learned about you is that I was listening to an interview. I think it was with the England basketball podcast, and you talked about, and I actually used it in one of the captions on our social media prior to the show. You talked about not always loving practice and not always loving training, and it occurred to me when I think you said something along the lines of, back in the day, if I didn't want to train, I would just let everybody know, and I would let everybody. I think the term you used was feel my mood, um,
Yeah.
and that's that's kind of what I remember about you. You being a really uncompromising, kind of tough kind of character. Somebody that, as a coach, really challenged me to think about, how do you engage with players? How do you get players to want to be the best versions of themselves in practice? That's even before we get to the game. So that's kind of my endearing memory of you. Now, that was a lot of years ago. So much has happened since then. So what I'd love you to do is just to start by telling us a bit about your basketball journey. Where did you start? How did you get involved? When did basketball become the thing that you wanted to do more than anything? And how did you get to where you are now?
So it's a bit of an odd journey actually. So I started playing in about year nine, so when I was maybe 14, 15. Um, and I started playing in school. I was lucky enough to have Rob Paternostro, the Leicester Riders head coach, working at my school. So we would work out pretty much every day. And I got pretty good pretty quick, or learned the basic skills pretty quickly. He then put me onto a friend who had like a boys' local league, so Central Venue League team. And then I was playing in that league and I was killing. I was absolutely killing it. And then I got seen by someone who coached at the Birmingham Force at the time it was called. So then I started doing National League. No, I didn't. Was that it? No. So then my teacher at my PE school pushed me to try out for the under 17s regional team at 15, and I got into that, and Clive Allen was the coach. And then from then, I got scouted to be on the England under 15s team. And then everyone realised that I didn't play National League, so then they had to find me a National League team to play in, and then that's when I got into Birmingham Force. And then from there, it kind of just progressed. I stayed at Birmingham Force until I was 18. I represented England at under 16s. I captained the under 18s. And then I moved, I took a gap year, went to Leeds, then studied at Loughborough for 4 years and was part of the Leicester Riders team and the Loughborough Student Riders, as it was when I started there. Played for Nottingham whilst I was in Loughborough as well. Um, Took another gap year, tried to figure out what I wanted to do, like secondary to basketball, and then ended up in Manchester studying again, did a master's in physiotherapy, and now I'm here in Manchester coaching the women's MMU team, physio for the elite athletes at MMU, and the sport development officer alongside playing inside on the WBBL team. So yeah, a bit of a short, brief overview, but it was just a bit of it's been a bit of a crazy ride, but I've enjoyed every minute of it. So yeah, thankful for basketball, really.
Excellent. And we excuse me, so many times, we talk to even over this period, I've had the opportunity to talk to a number of players who now play WBBL or have played WBBL. And for so many of those players, their journeys were a little bit different to yours. So, they started playing maybe a little bit younger. They were already in club setups. They, like you, they went through the kind of junior national team kind of process, the player pathway, and then most of those girls, if I think back, so we had Flo Ward on, we had Christina Gaskin, we had Siobhan Pryor on last week, we had Stephanie Gandy on, like almost all of those players went to the States, and you chose not to do that. Was that a specific choice? Did you have the option to go? Did you not want to go? How did that come around?
So when I wanted to go to the States, you really had to know someone um, who had been, or you had to literally like get your game tape, print it off in a DVD, like scan the DVD and then send it. And then I was just like, I just had no clue as to what to do or who to email, because when you go onto college basketball's website, there's like 10 different people you can email. So I had no idea who to email. I had no idea who to send these tapes to or these DVDs. I had no, I didn't know what D1 was versus D2. Um, like, I think if I would have actually went through with it, I would have been like, I'd have thought in my head, I think I'd have probably emailed like the top 10 D1 colleges, which is just ridiculous. But just because I had absolutely no clue of what the standard was like or anything like that. So I think I didn't have that guidance. I wanted to go, but if I'm being honest, I was very honest with myself from an early age, and I asked myself why I wanted to go, because I remember at under 16s, Mark Clark came to a camp, and he had spoken about going to Barking Abbey, and I'd spoken to my mom, and she was just like, "No, you don't need to. If you want to be good at basketball, you can be good at basketball here." Because she just thought I was too young, and to be honest, probably couldn't have afforded like the fees and the rent and stuff. But that kind of just stuck with me. So why did I want to go to Barking Abbey? What was at Barking Abbey that I couldn't get here? And to be honest, it was nothing, because in Birmingham I did really well. I was practicing with the guys, so I was getting pushed to my limits all the time. And then I thought the same about the States. Why do I want to go to the States? And at the time, I thought I really want the kit. I really like that they get the free kit and the free trainers. Um, I want to go for the lifestyle. Yes, basketball would be great, but I don't actually know anybody who's gone, so I don't know if basketball is great out there, or if it's an enjoyable experience, or if it's something that is suited for me. And then another thing that really not put me off, but made me very hesitant was um, so one of my coaches put me onto a guy who was going to help me um, kind of put the word out for me with coaches and mention my name, send some tape and stuff. And he was asking me a lot of questions about what religion I was, my race, my sexuality, um, just loads of really personal questions, which as an adult, I understand why. Um, and as I was thinking about it as a child, I was thinking, well, I didn't know a lot of the answers to those questions, and I was really worried that I would end up in the wrong place, or in a place that is could potentially dangerous, and it's unaccepting of who I am or who I might become or whatever. So that was a really big thing that kind of I just thought, let me just put the work in here, because if I really want it and I really want to be the best that I can be, achieve it anywhere. And that was kind of my mentality. So that was one thing I think, and I think a lot of athletes who go to the States need to be more honest with themselves and their coaches about why they're going, so that they can get the best experience and go to the right colleges. Because not everybody wants to be the best basketballer in the world. Some people want to go over there just for the lifestyle, to experience it, to say that they did it, and that's just as far, that's just as good as wanting to go out to be the best athlete. Do you know what I mean? Because the worst thing you can do is end up in the wrong place. Um, so that was kind of my mentality and why I stayed in the UK. Yeah.
Look, that's I think that's really really honest, and I think back to that time. So, what year were you 18, kind of 19, thinking about making that decision?
I think, well, 10 years ago. So 2010,
Yeah.
2009, 2010. Yeah.
And look, I think back to being a club coach in the UK at that time, and I think it was around that time when more kids, particularly kids on the junior national team, were thinking about going to the States, and it almost became this thing where you kind of, if you were going to take it seriously, you had to go to the States. But at the same time, there wasn't a lot of information as to how that process worked. Like,
Yeah.
and you talk about having to know someone, having to either know someone that had been there or somebody that had connections, somebody that could guide you in the right direction. And around that time, there were a few people, not quite a few, but there were a few people that were calling themselves agents. Now, how professional they were, is debatable. And I mean, look, let's demystify this for anyone who's listening that wants to go to the States. Pretty much anybody can go to the States if you're willing to pay. Like,
Yeah.
almost anybody can get to the States and have an experience, and definitely experience the lifestyle. And I really like what you were saying about being honest with yourself. Like, why do you want to go? Do you want to go so you can call yourself a baller that's played in the States? Or is it because you genuinely believe that that's the best player development environment for where you want to go next? Because or is that the highest level you ever expect to play at? There are lots of different motives for why people want to go somewhere, but I think you're right. Not enough people maybe ask themselves, well, why do I want to go? Why do I want to be in that particular destination? And there's also this thing, and I've had hundreds of conversations with coaches about whether going to the States is right for everyone, whether, does going to the States automatically put you in a better position than you would be if you went to a really good program in the UK. And I think increasingly I can, with some confidence now, I can say there are good destinations in the UK for kids that want to be the best that they can be. Whether it's the best place, as a national destination, there's definitely room for debate. But it's definitely, the States isn't the only choice, and it's definitely not the right choice for everyone. And clearly, you're now playing professional women's basketball, there are other ways to achieve what you want to do.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, um, like you said, the States isn't the right option for everyone. Firstly, not everyone is good enough to go to the States and compete at that level. Not everyone is robust enough because their schedules are pretty tough. But also, I think people sometimes get a false impression of the States. I'm really good friends with Dominic Allen, Georgia Jones, Lauren Thomas Johnson, and they'll tell you that, you know, they hated it to begin with, and they had to really stick it out and really tough it through. And Christina Gaskin's got an amazing blog out about her experience in the States and how, after reading that blog, it kind of seems like it's run like a business. You can be recruited over the next year. So you go in your freshman and you think maybe by your last 2 years you're going to get some court time, but actually each year you might just get recruited over, and um, a better athlete might just come in and take your place. Each year you might not, the coach might change, you might get transferred. So there's loads of things that can happen, and I'll say this, that when you're in the UK, and from my own experience of being in the UK, it's very different because actually you get that investment put into you, and they can't waste the investment because we don't have the big budgets. So if I invest in an athlete and a scholarship, or whatever it may be that we invest, then it's our job to make that investment like worth it. So I have to put into that athlete and they have to put in as well, and we have to make the best situation possible. Also, because our programs are smaller, we, especially at MMU, we can tailor it to the athlete, and we really take a more holistic approach to the athlete. So for me, it was great because I worked with Matthew Harbour, and we had individuals every single day. So I had an individual of how I could be better, how I could be better for the team. I did leadership classes, and just loads of tailored, I guess, individualized things that were for me only. So other people on my team didn't necessarily do it, but because that's what I needed to improve on, that's what I did. And then everyone in the team had that same approach, that when we came together, we were all enhanced individuals almost, if that makes sense, rather than just we need to win these games, and we need to win this so that we look good and we get better athletes in the next year. It wasn't like that. It was more, how can we be better individuals? How can we help you achieve your goals, after you leave this program? So I don't, and some programs in the States might be like that, but um, there is definitely a different mentality, I think, and not everybody, it's not made for everybody. So yeah, I think you're definitely right there.
So you've talked about Matt and your experience at Loughborough, kind of on some other shows. Now that you've made, or now that you're making, because you're still, obviously you're still playing, and actually you're a real core piece in that Manchester Mystics kind of program and lineup, and we'll talk about that in a bit more in a few minutes time. But now that you're making the transition from playing to coaching, and you're developing your own coaching philosophy, can you reflect on some of the coaches that have made a big enough impact on you that they've shaped a bit of your philosophy?
Yeah, I think honestly, every single coach that I've had, I will take something from. Literally every single coach that I've had. And don't get me wrong, there are things that I wouldn't take forward as well. Not because it's necessarily bad, but it doesn't suit me. So like for example, Matt, he was always very prepared. His attention to detail and his level of detail that he went into, I think, was really important in my development and helping me understand the context of the game. In our individuals, the way that he questioned me, again, helped me understand um, the context and helped me develop my basketball IQ. My what is it? My national junior national league coach, David Lyons, the way he drilled my fundamentals, and even Rob Paternostro, the way he drilled my fundamentals meant that I became quite successful quite quickly because I traveled less, because I double dribbled less, um, because I just took care of the ball a little bit more, um, because I didn't have those unnecessary turnovers. And it was literally because the first 15, 20 minutes of practice, it was fundamentals: jump stop, jab step, one way, jump stop, lead step, jump stop, crossover step. And it was just practicing that with a ball, sideline to sideline, literally for like 20 minutes. So things like that have definitely stuck with me, and I can see it when I'm coaching younger girls today. Those are the things that I think they're missing. So taking kind of those experiences forward, and then more recently, Jeff Jones, he is definitely a really big influence on me and the way I coach. And um, he's very, I'd say, like Matt and Jeff are on different ends of a spectrum of a level of detail to complete freedom. And so Jeff, the way he allows you to play is very free, which again I like. So it's about just taking bits of every coach and then developing in your own philosophy. It's funny actually because if you see me play, um, I coach completely differently. I'm so relaxed. Honestly, I'm just the most relaxed coach. I think I was made to coach. Playing's really stressful. Coaching is, yeah, because although I'm competitive still, I'm able to just really take a huge step back, and not get caught up in the kind of the roller coaster of the game. So um, it's kind of nice coaching and knowing that I can, because I think if I coached like I played, I'd be exhausted. Be absolutely exhausted. I'd be sweating on the sideline. Yeah.
Well, I should definitely come and take some lessons from you because yeah, I'm generally exhausted when I coach, and I try every year. I try and be more laid back and more zen like, and um, anybody who watches my social media knows that I meditate pretty much every day. Mostly that's because of my kids. That's actually not because of basketball. So I try and bring that um, kind of I guess open and non-judgmental approach to basketball. But within 5 minutes of a game starting, I'm a totally different person. So I have every respect for somebody that can be kind of so competitive and so driven, and you're a very emotive person when you play the game. And I know you've talked about what some of the things that you bring to the team is that passion and that resilience and that dogged determination. And if you bring a slightly different demeanor or even a very different demeanor to your coaching, I think that's a real testament of your kind of personal growth. And yeah, we maybe need to talk again about how I can bring some of that zen to my coaching. It's interesting you talk about some of those coaches. I was talking to Matt last week. We were just talking about basketball generally. I worked with Dave Lyons this year on the GB the FIMBA GB program, so the Masters Women's program, and I've known David for a long time, so shout out to him tonight if he's listening. And then starting, you talked about Clive Allen, who I've worked with before on basketball camps, and all of these people that have had an influence on you as a player, but also, like you say, you've learned something from all of those coaches, and some of it is, like you say, stuff that you wouldn't do, and because it maybe doesn't fit your personality or your philosophy. Now that you are coaching, just see, can you describe your coaching philosophy, your coaching approach?
I think I'm very much, it's in the player's hands. I can only guide them and they have to come up with answers. I think from playing, if a coach tells me to do something and I don't do it, that's not a reflection of the coach. That's a reflection of me as a player, and maybe I didn't understand it, or maybe I couldn't execute it. Maybe I wasn't like, maybe athletically I wasn't good enough, or I just didn't understand the context of what you're asking me to do. So for me, it's about unpicking those things, understanding how does, as a team, how do we want to play, and then allowing the team to almost form itself through kind of discovery, because I coach a lot of young kids, and young girls, so a lot of it would just be questioning. I don't know what's it called, guided discovery or something like that. I don't know what
Yeah.
the posh term for it is.
No, guided
But it was
discovery. That's good.
yeah. So because I think one of the things that British basketball is missing, especially at a junior level, is understanding of how to play basketball, understanding of why you did what you did when you did it. I think a lot of things happen by fluke, and even some of our most talented under 14 players, they do things and they don't even realize they're doing it, which I think in some sense is good because it's just an automatic skill. But then when they get thrown into a novel situation, they then can't adapt because they don't know why they were doing the first thing in the first place. Does that make sense? So a lot of it
Yeah,
is
yeah,
just putting
absolutely.
them, yeah, putting them in putting uh, the girls in new situations and questioning them a lot, so they understand the context of the game. Most of the girls that I coach are already pretty talented. Um, like, yeah, so through the Aspire program and stuff, they're already pretty talented. So I don't really have to teach them too many fundamental skills or anything like that. But a big thing is why they're doing what they're doing. Um, I just think as well, a big part of my coaching is to coach people to be good human beings, to be good teammates, to kind of to have confidence in themselves on and off the court. And it's really hard. You've asked me that question. It's a really hard question to answer because there's just so much that I like to pack into coaching. Um, I just see basketball for me as like it was a game changer in my life. About, like, it gave me self-esteem. It gave me something to do, so I wasn't on the streets. It increased my self-worth, and I just kind of want to give that back to young girls. And let them know that they can be great. They can be really great if they apply themselves to whatever it is. So there's a lot involved in my coaching. I think at any moment that I can teach a life skill, I will do it. Any moment I can teach context of the game, I would do it. And if I can relate that context to the wider picture of the world, I'll do it. Um, and yeah, and then on top of all that, it's just about making it fun. Um, some of the some of the national team programs that I was involved in, you would dread it. You would just hate going there because you just be like, oh, this is going to be so hard. But it's about making it competitive and fun. It doesn't have to be hard, and it doesn't have to be, you shouldn't dread going to national team practice. You should enjoy it. You should want to go there because you're going to learn a lot, and it's going to be a non-judgmental environment where you're able to make mistakes and you're not punished for making those mistakes. Um, so a lot of the things I like to do as a coach is create those spaces, even for the senior women that I coach at MMU. I always start the practice with a fun game, so I can see the mood of practice. So if we're playing a really fun game and someone's just really not into it, I might just have a conversation with them like, "Oh, how's your day been?" And it might be that, "Oh, it's been really stressful. I got wet in the rain, and then I had to get the bus, and the bus was stuck in traffic, and I'm just really tired." And I'll say, "Okay, well, these are the things that we've got to get through today. So let's get through them, and then we're finished." And if that takes an hour and a half, it takes an hour and a half. It takes 45 minutes, it takes 45 minutes. But then that player knows that once we tick these boxes, they're done. So they can give me that effort for that amount of time, and then the practice is over. So just forming really good relationships with my players. I'm speaking so much. I'm so sorry, but there's just, I think there's, yeah. I just
Hey,
every
look,
when you're saying things, it's just coming back to me what I
look,
do.
look. I
Um,
think it is a difficult question, and it's a question that as coaches, particularly as we're developing as coaches, we don't get asked enough. We don't get asked to express what is our approach to basketball. What does basketball look like through our
oh,
eyes? Are you all right there? Oh, we just had a
yeah,
little
there's a
technical.
phone.
We're back. We're back. It's all good. It's a question I don't think we ask people enough. And one of the things that I often do, particularly I tutor coaching courses. I do level ones, level twos. Um, I always ask the coaches, why do you coach the game, and why do you coach what you coach? And the first one, they often can answer pretty quickly. Either it's because they want to give back, or they got something through the game, or they've got a kid that's playing, or they're a teacher. And the first question generally isn't too taxing. But as soon as you start to ask coaches why do they coach what they coach, suddenly that becomes a more difficult question. And it should be it could be really simple, it could be quite complex, but you should be able to answer that question. And you say, oh, that's a interesting question. Actually, you answered it perfectly. You're about creating a great environment where people can be successful. You're about developing strong relationships. You're about teaching people skills outside of the game. You want to improve people's basketball IQ. And you probably could keep adding to that thing, but it's one of those things. I think as coaches we should be able to um, we should be able to communicate how we see the game, because so many times, and I go back to something you just said before, sometimes the failure is not the fact that the coach said the wrong thing, but it maybe is that the player didn't understand what was being asked of them. Now that's for me that's quite a fundamental thing. If you're trying to play a team game and you've got the coach on this side and the player on that side, or players on the other side, and they don't quite understand what the other one's talking about, that's kind of problematic, right? That's
Yeah,
quite a tough situation. Like that is gonna be a stressful. That's when coaching is stressful. And that's when, as players, and you reference going into kind of the national team environment. I think some of that stress for the players is caused by the unknown. Like, you're going to be coached by the national team coach who maybe you've never met or you've never seen, and that naturally creates a bit of stress. But quite quickly, there's an opportunity for coaches to at least reduce some of that stress by explaining what the environment's going to be like. That it is about guided discovery. It is about being able to make mistakes and learning from those mistakes. It is about self improvement. And yes, obviously, you're competing for a minimum number of places. So at some level you are going to be judged, but you're not going to be judged as a good or bad person. And last week, who did I have on the show last week? So I was talking to Siobhan Pryor, and she was talking about, you know, not allowing basketball to be the only way that she expressed herself in life. I was listening to a podcast by or by somebody else, by Chris on Rebound, who was talking to Ben Stanley. Ben Stanley's an old friend of mine, and he was talking about getting to a point where he was hating basketball because he judged his own self worth on whether or not he had a good game or a bad game, or whether he coached a good game or a bad game. And clearly, you've just talked about how important it is, and the unique rich opportunity we have in sport to help people learn life lessons, not just basketball lessons, not just how to dribble or how to catch the ball or how to take advantage of this situation or that situation. And then the other thing I heard you talk about just then was about helping people to really understand the nuances of the game. So, to me, on a very simple level, the game is about advantage and disadvantage. And funnily enough, this summer I was reading Basketball England's player performance framework, player development framework. Um, and for the first time ever in the UK, I read somebody talking about the ability to take advantage of advantages, how to get out of disadvantage. And I thought, yeah, that's as simple as the game is sometimes. Score more than
Yeah.
the other team, and understand advantage and disadvantage. And again, if you're teaching your players about basketball IQ, then to me, you're absolutely up there amongst some of the best coaches in the UK, because teaching techniques is super easy. Teaching the skill, which is the ability to use the right technique at the right time to create some advantage for yourself or your team, that's where coaching is a really elevated kind of a really elevated product. And that's where more of us need to be more of the time. And there'll be people listening saying, yeah, well, I already do that, that's fine. And if you're doing that, then fantastic. But if you're not doing that, and and I think we should all question ourselves and challenge ourselves about, what should great coaching look like? What should great coaching experiences look like? How should players feel about the idea of going to a coaching session? I want them to feel like whatever they've experienced during the course of the day, a coaching session is going to elevate their mood. Now, to any of
Yeah.
my players out there listening, if you have walked away from one of my coaching sessions and your mood hasn't been elevated, then that's partly on me, and I accept that challenge and that responsibility. I equally know that if you come to practice and you're not in the right place to practice, then that's on you. And between us, we've got to work out a way to find that kind of rarefied space where I can help you get the most of you and you can get the most of me. And anyway, we've gone off on another holy tangent, which I didn't really plan to get into tonight. But um I do want to ask you about kind of this role of advocacy that you've kind of undertaken. And whether it was by design, whether somebody picked you out and thought, Rheanne Bailey's going to be a great advocate for the girls game and the women's game. And you've even referenced yourself as you've become the poster child
Yeah.
for engaging women and girls in basketball. Tell me, how did that happen, and where are you with that, with that kind of process?
I don't know how that happened actually. I just coach girls a lot, and I'm passionate about coaching girls. And don't get me wrong, I coach boys as well. Um, I only coach boys and at an engagement level. So after school clubs and like satellite clubs. I coach girls through engagement, satellite, national league, not a specific team, but I drop in and out of Mystics junior sessions, and on the Aspire team. Um, and I'm not sure if this is actually public knowledge, but I'm going to say it anyway. I was going to be on the under 14 girls England program, so I was going to be one of the assistant coaches on that. So I think I just really like coaching girls. I think that they are. Do you know what I feel like? I feel like they. I feel like I just have the skills to relate to them, to engage with them, and I really like to take on the challenge of increasing their confidence. When the first Aspire session, I always say, the coaches, we always have a conversation afterwards. And because you coach like on the next court, the boys' session's happening, and then on the other court, the girls' session's happening. Or at least that's how it is in Manchester. And the boys are always so loud and so obnoxious. Oh, they could quieten down a bit. Do you know what I mean? There's no need for them to be that loud. And the girls are just whispering. And that for me is like the clear example of coaching boys. I think a lot of the boys that I coach, specifically for engagement, I almost have to not knock them down a few pegs, but to kind of just say, slow down a second, and let's learn this before we move on to that. With girls, it's like, no, you're ready to do that, let's move on to that, but they just don't have the self-confidence sometimes. And that's sort of like a trend that I've been noticing. And it kind of breaks my heart, I think, that the world and society kind of bring, make girls feel that way, that they can't just be themselves and be loud. They can't, there's so much pressure on women to be what the world perceives them to be. um I just, it would be great for me if the girls that I coach at the end of it, they just feel a little bit inspired to really do what they want to do in life. And if I can just encourage them to do that a little bit, um, that's kind of all I do it for, really. And I'll give you an example. I sometimes I ask the girls that I coach what they want to be when they're older. And I say you can't pick a basketball player because that's obvious. You're obviously going to be a basketball player. But if you had to pick something else, what would you pick? And one of the girls, they came back and they said, I don't really know. And when I ask the question, I usually know what I think they would be good at, or what I know their interests. So this girl, she was really good. She always would come in and her nails would be flawless all the time, and she'd be fuming if she chipped a nail or anything like that. So I would say, but you're really good at hair and nails. And then and she said to me, yeah, I guess I could work in a nail salon. And I was like, no, you're going to own the nail salon. That's what I was thinking. You're going to be the boss. You're going to own it. And then you're probably going to have a franchise and you're going to have loads of stores all around the UK. And that's an example that kind of like sticks out to me, that I want girls to think and dream bigger than they do. And if they think they dream big, to dream bigger than that. um, and it's okay if if you don't achieve it, but for me, if you dream massive and then you only achieve big, that's better than dreaming small and achieving nothing. And so that's kind of why I coach girls, and still no idea why I think the poster girl thing happened because I'm in Manchester and so is the Basketball England office, so they have easy access to me. um, but yeah, that's so. Uh, so, but I think, yeah, I think I do a lot of stuff with girls, and basketball. So yeah, I guess it just fit.
Look, I've heard you talk a lot about kind of women and girls engagement, and even just listening to you talk then, because I wasn't sure where that story was going to go. And yeah, I really, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. I don't think it's got anything to do with proximity. I think Basketball England maybe found themselves in the lucky position of being close to you, but I can't think of any. I can't think of many people better. And obviously there are lots of great advocates kind of out there for engaging kind of women and girls in sport, and we've been very fortunate to talk to some of them over this summertime. But yeah, just listening to you talk about why you want to get more girls involved, and it being not just about basketball, but it being about helping them elevate their confidence and to think big. I think that alone puts you in a great position to utilize the game for more than just winning and losing and learning skills, and maybe getting the opportunity to travel with basketball. That there's definitely so much more that as coaches we all have a responsibility to do. And um, just on that subject, and I, we did talk kind of prior to the show about some of the work you've also done around social justice, and I wonder whether you can maybe bring to life some of I know you've been marching. I see your social media, but what are some of the practical things that you intend to do, maybe because of what's happening, or is your life going to be just the same because you've always fought for social justice. What are some of the things coming into this season that you think you might do differently, or that you'll continue to do?
I think it's funny. I think I've always, the way I coach, I've always stood for social justice. So, I will always empower a lot of the young people that I coach are black and from the BAME community. I would actually go as far as saying 85% are. And it's just in the schools that I'm in and that I coach in and the sessions that I run in the areas that we're in. That's just the neighborhoods that we're in. And it's very diverse sessions. But I always coach in a way that, or I always try to coach in a way that's empowering, um, and that uplifts um, the black people that I coach, but also the other ethnicities that I coach as well. I'll always draw attention to differences in a way that is positive. So, for example, um, when one of the girls gets her hair done, and it's different to what it was last week. I'll say, your hair's nice. How did you get it done? Who did it? How long did it take? And I'll ask those questions because I know the answers, but it might be that other people in the group don't. So I'll ask those questions so that they might not feel comfortable asking it, but I'll ask it and then we'll have an open discussion about it. And then we'll just kind of encourage people to speak more. And that's how I've always coached, but I can't say actually that I've stood up for social justice in my life all the time, which is, I think that's something that's going to change. Um, I often have found it easier just to be quiet, um, and to not say things because it is easier. It's way easier than speaking out and maybe being the angry black woman and being the unreasonable one. But yeah, that's definitely something that's going to change because it might be easier now, but in the long run, it's harder to correct. And that's something, listening to and speaking with Benny from Basketball England. She's someone that's really inspired me throughout this throughout her whole career, really, but especially speaking to her around Black Lives Matter and social justice and the things that she's had to put up with through her career. I've found that really inspiring. Um, but I also think as a coach, I'll be extending knowledge, and extending what I think should happen and should change, and hopefully, if only just in the club, Manchester Mystics and Manchester Magic, making sure that it's a safe environment for everyone and it empowers every ethnicity and um, every person and individual that walks through the door feels empowered and feels like a valued member, and feel like they matter because that's just you know to say someone matters is just really a minimum statement, right? So um so I
It's
hope
not
they
like we're
feel
asking for
more than,
much, right?
yeah. So I hope they feel valued, I hope they feel listened to, heard, empowered. um yeah, so even if it's just in Manchester, I think that, and that hopefully then that can spread ripple effects across the country, and basketball specifically. um but yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because I think
Look,
it
it
requires
is a
more than
tough
one
one.
person.
It is a tough one, and yeah, I'd agree. It definitely requires more than one, but it has to start with at least one, right? Because
Yeah,
I can absolutely concur with you. There are times throughout my, I've been fortunate to have a few people kind of reach out to me, so shortly after the George Floyd thing happened, I had quite a few people kind of reach out for me, very well intentioned, friends of mine, colleagues of mine, asking me how I was thinking about it, how it had kind of impacted on me. equally, I had a lot of people not say anything, and I'm not talking about. I was expecting an influx of people to start calling me and checking in on me and say, "Oh my God, have you dealt with racism?" And I've had some of those conversations, but I can honestly say that I have tried pretty hard not to be in situations where race became an issue. And I say that because I've actively gone the almost gone the other way, and tried not to make my ethnicity and my background and my heritage be be part of who I am, kind of. And and I know I'm not the only black person to almost try and keep a low profile. Just try and be who you want to be who you are, but don't be too black. Like,
Yeah.
don't be too ethnic, because that's just going to rub someone the wrong way, or someone's going to, that's just going to buy into a stereotype that someone's already got about you. um the thing is, even with my best attempts to do that, people still see me as the black guy, as the black coach or as the black lecturer. Um, so it's weird when people first started asking me, like, how is this making you feel? I'm like, well, to be honest, I was black yesterday, I'm black today, and I'm going to be black tomorrow. So in that respect, nothing's changed. Like, people will have racist opinions about me and what I do, and um, regardless of what I do, regardless of what I do, and actually what I say. And that's actually given me a bit more freedom to say, do you know what? Every time there is an opportunity to challenge, um, some sense of inequality, some sense of injustice, I'm gonna take that opportunity to go and challenge it, because how much worse could it be? How do you know? It's not going to.
Yeah.
It's definitely not going to make things any worse. Yeah, yeah. It might. I might have to deal with the odd kind of bit of confrontation, or the odd backlag, or deal with someone's ignorance. But it can't make the situation any worse. So it's got to. I've got to just be optimistic and think it's going to at least. It's going to at least educate something. It's going to challenge some of that kind of everyday racism that we deal with, that we deal with every day. And it's actually made me wake up a little bit and say, look, you have to be the person you're supposed to be. And being from an ethnic minority, being, my parents are from Jamaica, from the Caribbean, and I was born here, I've lived here for nearly 50 years, and we're still dealing with racism. So sitting back and hoping that it's not going to affect you, that's not really an approach for anything. And I just I wanted to talk to you about it, because I know that you have put yourself out there, that you have kind of been outspoken, and you say the ripple effect might just be in Manchester, but I think the ripple effect will be a lot more far reaching the more all of us recognize that we all have a role to play in education, in reform, whether that's social reform, whether it's education reform, whether it's legal reform. We all have a role to play. None of us can afford to sit back, because this
Yeah.
problem is real and it's out there, and it ain't going anywhere unless we all do something about it. And I say all as in everyone. So yeah, that's my rant. And yeah, I think those ripples will be much further the more we speak about it. And the fact that within basketball we're given a platform, as players, as coaches, um that we can actually share those ideas and those opinions, and try and get people to be more progressive, and encourage people to have those difficult conversations. I think we're in a kind of really fortunate position that we can do that, and I really respect what you've been doing over the summer, and I'll keep watching, and seeing what you're up to, and vice versa. And if you see me doing something that looks cowardly, you have permission to challenge me on that straight away.
Yeah, and the same for anyone listening, because um I think we we all have to kind of stick together, and we all have to hold each other accountable. The same way, if you're on a team, you know you're only as strong as your weakest link, sort of thing, and you have to uh, we have to start building each other up, and we have to start um, challenging things, educating those around us. And also, one of the things that I had to learn pretty quickly is that um, when I went to the Manchester protest and Basketball England put that on their Facebook, there were a lot of really negative comments, and that was like really really hard for me to see. I knew racism exists, obviously, because I've experienced it, but um, I just didn't, for some reason, I just didn't think that it would show its face on that post. Um, and that was really kind of heartbreaking for me. And people, some of the things that people were saying, like, that's so irresponsible, but you'll leave your kids with me for me to coach them to be better, but you won't support me in a protest that says that my life matters. And I just thought that's just so, it was just so interesting. But I took it really to heart, and I've kind of learned that um, those comments are not a reflection of you. You have to know who you are, and you have to know who you stand for and what your morals are. And if people aren't on board with the fact that your life matters, then their comments shouldn't really, their opinions are just ridiculous, whatever comes out of their mouth. Um, so that was something that I've kind of learned, and I've also learned that um, I've worked hard to be where I am, and I think when I say stuff sometimes, I I almost play myself down a little bit, and I think that's women do it a lot. I heard Andrea Congreve's podcast with Sam Neter on Hoops Fix, and she says what she does so casually that it makes, if you weren't really listening, you would think that she's just played local league or something, because it's just so casual what she says. She's played in the WNBA, and she's had this amazing career. Um, but I think I have to, like, we're in the positions we're in because we've worked hard to be there. No one's given us this. We have the skills and the talent to be here. So for me, I have to remember that no one's put you here, so no one can take you away from being here. I'm not going to lose anything by speaking up, by being black, by being myself, basically. So I just, encourage everyone to just speak up, to challenge people, to connect with others, to take rest as well, because you can't take on the world, and to look after yourself, because being black is like a constant thing, and very it's very triggering sometimes, because just on social media, like last week or something, Jacob shot in the back 7 times, and the video was just all over social media. You can just be scrolling through your Instagram and see such traumatic video footage that is being circulated so that people can see that racism exists. When actually, if you need a video like that to see that racism exists, then you're not really an ally at all. Because it shouldn't take that, and it shouldn't take for black people to be extraordinary or, super clean criminal record to to get sympathy. Like, just because someone has a criminal record doesn't mean they deserve to die. Um, and just because someone has mental health issues, or is bigger than you, or their skin is darker than yours, it doesn't mean that they deserve to be mistreated. So I think, yeah, so I think we just need to continue to speak up, because it's the only way we're really going to see change, and we shouldn't stop until we see the change that we deserve, really. Um, yeah.
Excellent. Well, look, I said at the beginning of the show, normally we try and go to about 8, and it's already 8:15. So I don't want to take any more of your time, but I really want to thank you, not just for coming on, but coming on and really kind of bearing yourself and being super open about kind of your experiences and what drives you, and you know, talking about your journey, and answering some difficult questions. Like, you know, we can talk. I could talk coaching philosophy kind of all day, and clearly, you know, there's no end to the conversation about social justice and our individual responsibilities. But thank you so much for A, for coming on, B, for being such a kind of open guest, and sharing, you know, kind of your Zen basketball philosophy. Don't be surprised if I maybe send you a text over the course of the season when I'm not feeling so zen, and maybe ask for some help. But
Yeah.
yeah, I really appreciate your time. Thank you everybody else for tuning in. You know, we're here. Um, I mean, the plan when we first started this show, we probably thought, oh, we'll do about 10 episodes and we'll see where we go. And we're on episode 19. Technically, we're still kind of partly locked down as a country, although some people would have you believe that everything's back to normal and we can all just go back to doing what we're doing before. Um, but yeah, I think we definitely will have an episode 20. Haven't even I know who I want to be on the show next week, but I haven't even had chance to ask them. But I guarantee you, just like every week, we've had fantastic guests. Remember, if you missed a live show, you can always go back on the Upstream kind of media network. You can go on YouTube or Facebook and you can catch up. There's always abridged versions of the shows on my own personal YouTube site. Please like and subscribe to those shows. We're going to keep bringing you content even over the season. We probably won't do this every Wednesday, but we'll keep bringing you basketball content, talking to people who really care passionately about the game of basketball. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great evening. Rheanne, if you can just stay on for 1 minute afterwards, that would be great.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
everyone. See you soon. Bye.